Generation Zero. Let's talk about it. So, Gen Zero is a really fun game that is set in roughly the 1980s. I think it's pretty much 1984, but I can't be. I'm not sure. But it is set back in the 1980s, roughly, in a country that basically flipped and was attacked by a bunch of robots. And your job is that you're basically just an insurgent, and you're trying to take down these robots and find other survivors of this massive attack. Some things like that. So it's mostly just an FPS game, but it is a open world game. It does have base crafting, and it does have some survival needs, as you need to go around and collect materials for your base and things like that. Other than that, it really is mostly just an FPS. But I mean, you get to go up against colossal robots, some super cool stuff like that, flying robots, some little robots that just run around like dogs, all kinds of different robots. So it's really cool to see and fight and play against those. However, some issues that I've run into with this game, and I've actually asked around because I've played this game with some of my friends and some other people, but this game has a lot of issues with crashing, especially older gen consoles and devices. So that's kind of a problem because you end up not really being able to play consistently. However, the game is a lot of fun to play when you do get to play it. I love playing it, but it does get a little annoying to have the game crash. I've heard people from Gen X consoles and PlayStation 5s and, super high quality PCs. All of them are saying that they have console crashes, computer crashes, game quits. So I don't know what it is with that, and I don't know why it hasn't gotten fixed in the 4 years, I think it is, that this game's been out. But the developers are really on top of a lot of other bugs and issues, and they fix a lot of things like that. For example, the 4 year anniversary of this game is coming up basically right now. They're having their whole big event. And so like they added a bunch of like 4 year anniversary fireworks and a bunch of cool stuff like that that you can only access during the time that the event's running. So they have a lot of things that they do keep up on. They fix a lot of the glitches and bugs that you run into other than that. I'm not sure if it's just because of the high quality graphics in this game or what that causes it to crash a lot, but it does crash a lot, especially when you're playing multiplayer with your friends. So that is something to be aware of. There's a bunch of different games or guns in this game, so there's a lot to do there. There's a lot of fun messing around with games. However, it is pretty difficult to pick up experimental weapons. They say that all the weapons and everything that drop are just random. However, everyone I've talked to has a pretty common issue of not being able to get all of the experimental type weapons because they end up only getting the ones that are really common and really easy to find. And that's not to say that even those are common and easy to find, but still, like me personally, I've only been able to find like 3 or 4 experimental type weapons, but then I found like a dozen of each kind of experimental weapon that I had already found, but yet I can't find any new ones. So that is pretty frustrating. Some of the other loot and some stuff like that is also kind of disappointing, where you just repetitively get the same exact kind of loot, where you'll get like 10 different kinds of the same armor set or stuff like that, instead of getting new armor or equipment. But again, it all is percentage based, so supposedly eventually I might be able to collect all the experimental weapons and armor and stuff like that. But so far I haven't had a lot of luck. The weapons, though, are pretty customizable. You can add an attachment to them, a sight. You can add experimental ammo types that have different elemental damage on them. You can add different magazines to them, stuff like that. So there's some pretty decent customization there. There's a lot of customization for your character, from different armor types to different clothing types to face paint, earrings, necklaces, all kinds of stuff like that. But as far as your actual character itself, you can't really change how the character looks, just what you put on the character. But there is still a lot of customization for just your character. Now, the game is open world, so you can just run around and explore. So there's not really an ending to the game. It's pretty much just limitless time being able to play, which is super fun. And I don't really like being able to just play through a campaign and then that's it. There's not any more to a game. Now, the campaign to this game itself depends, because there's a couple of different endings to the game. And to get all the different endings, I think it takes like 20 hours or something like that. But to play through just the campaign as quickly as possible, I think it only takes like 6 to 8 hours. I'm not exactly sure. But there is a lot of side quests, a lot of side missions that you can go run through and do. And I think in total that ends up taking like 40 to 50 hours or something like that. I'm not exactly sure because I did spend a lot of time just, running around and screwing around with the robots and blowing them up and all that kind of stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But there is a lot of content here. Plus, the developers are really on top of adding more stuff to this game. So they're constantly adding new missions, new guns, new, map parts and content and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's really cool to see them add all that kind of stuff. It's just a lot of fun to mess around with the game. I personally really enjoy this game, even though it does have a lot of bug glitches. So if I were you, I'd definitely check it out. One of the cooler things that you can do in the game now is they just recently added a dirt bike. So you can now run around on the motorbike and just ride through the map. However, one thing that I've experienced and I've heard a lot of people say regarding crashes is if you're on the motorbike and you're riding around pretty consistently, the graphics don't have time to render properly and it ends up crashing your game, which I've personally experienced that. Aside from that, though, I really haven't run into very many bugs with this game. Just, some random bugs that you expect to see from, gameplay. Like a robot flying through the air, glitching through the ground, some little things like that. But yeah, I would definitely give this game a check if I were you, because it is a lot of fun to play. And, I mean, what's more fun than running around with some guns and blowing up some robots?